Some monuments are born to be eternal. The Great Pyramid of Giza has endured for 4.5 millennia. The Colosseum survived the very fall of Rome herself. The Parthenon still watches over Athens with a weary, stone-faced grace. These structures are proof that stone and ambition can, occasionally, defy time. But what of the cities that didn't just survive, but thrived as the sole beacons of light when the rest of the world descended into the darkness of the Middle Ages? What of Constantinople, the queen of cities, the second Rome? The year is 565 AD. The long, transformative reign of Emperor Justinian I is reaching its twilight. Yet the empire has never looked more magnificent. It is a sprawling metropolis of 500,000 souls, a crossroads of ambition on the edge of a vast continent, serving as the bridge between the Orient and the West. But today, most of this grandeur lies buried beneath the layers of modern Istanbul, or lost to the relentless march of centuries. In this video, I use modern AI tools to reconstruct these lost landmarks from surviving historical records, archaeological blueprints, and the vivid descriptions of those who walked these streets 1,500 years ago. By rebuilding these scenes as realistic photos and animating them into video, we can do what original painters never could. We can shift our perspective, change camera angles, and move through spaces that haven't existed in their prime for over a millennium. We aren't just looking at the past, we are stepping into it. We will recreate the ambient sounds of the 6th century, the lap of the Bosphorus against the stone quays, the steady rhythm of footsteps on marble, and the distant, thunderous roar of 100,000 voices echoing from the Hippodrome of Constantinople. We will breathe in the salt air of the Marmara and the heavy scent of incense drifting from the vaulted shadows of newly built cathedrals. Now, imagine you are a traveler arriving by land after a journey of many weeks. You aren't greeted by a mere settlement, but by the massive Theodosian walls, a triple line of defense that has never been breached. You approach the Golden Gate of Constantinople. Picture it, not the weathered stone we see today, but a monumental arch clad in shimmering white marble, topped with towering statues of victory and emperors cast in gold. The gates themselves are plated in gold, catching the morning sun so fiercely it blinds the unprepared. As the heavy gates creak open, you step onto the Mese, the middle way, the golden artery of the empire. Ahead of you lies a city at its absolute peak, a labyrinth of marble forums, giant fountains, and the impossible, glittering dome of the Hagia Sophia. If you stay until the end, we will compare these AI reconstructions to the modern streets of Istanbul to see what the tide of history has left behind and what remains. This is Constantinople. This is the zenith of the Roman world. Let's begin our journey. Having passed through the blinding brilliance of the Golden Gate of Constantinople, we now set foot upon the Mese, the middle way. This is the great spinal cord of Constantinople, a vast, colonnaded artery that will lead us directly into the beating heart of the Roman world. But as we begin our walk, notice the unexpected silence. Using modern AI tools to reconstruct these outskirts reveals a surprising truth. In 565 AD, this region was not the dense urban labyrinth you might expect. Imagine the scent of damp earth and the rustle of orchards. For the first few miles, the Mese cuts through expansive farmlands and quiet gardens, all safely tucked behind the impregnable Theodosian walls. It is a strange, peaceful transition between the fortress-like exterior and the looming metropolis ahead. As we move further, the rhythm of our footsteps on the paving stones begins to echo against rising marble. The city begins to press in on us. We enter the Forum of Arcadius, established in 403 AD. Through the lens of our reconstruction, we can shift our perspective and look up, far beyond the reach of a static 19th century engraving, at the towering triumphal column at its center. Picture this, a massive stone pillar, its surface alive with spiraling reliefs of imperial victories, crowned by a bronze statue of Arcadius, that watches over the southern reaches of the city. Continuing our journey, we pass the site of the old city walls from Emperor Constantine the Great's era, crossing an invisible threshold into the older soul of the capital. The air grows thicker with the smell of wood smoke and the noise of trade as we arrive at the Forum of the Ox. Here the atmosphere is one of vibrant renewal. Only a few years before our arrival, a devastating fire swept through this square. However, by 565 AD, Justinian I's relentless ambition has seen it restored. Our AI reconstruction allows us to see the facades as they likely appeared then, surprisingly new, with clean stone and bustling shops. In the center, the famous bronze ox stands as a silent witness to the city's endurance. Finally, we reach the Forum Amastrianum, a place that perfectly captures the splendor and strain of this era. On one side, we see the Temple of Helios. But look closer. The pagan cults have been suppressed, and the temple has been converted into a church. Opposite it stands the Capitolium. Once a temple to the ancient gods, it has been repurposed as a prestigious center for higher learning. Imagine the sound of students debating philosophy in the very halls where priests once offered sacrifices. This is the key point of our journey, seeing how Constantinople does not just bury its past, but reinvents it to serve the glory of the Christian Roman Empire. Stay with me, for as we continue down the Mese, the density of the crowds will swell, and the true wonders of the central city will soon be revealed. As we push deeper into the city's heart along the Mese, the rhythm of the capital begins to change. We are no longer in the quiet orchards of the outskirts. We are traversing a monumental gallery of imperial ego and divine devotion. Imagine arriving at the Forum of Arcadius. Here, in 565 AD, the sky is dominated by a colossal triumphal column, its stone surface intricately carved with the spiraling stories of wars won and enemies humbled. Picture this, standing at its base, dwarfed by the sheer scale of the marble, looking up at the bronze statue of Arcadius, shimmering against the Bosphorus sun. We continue our walk, the marble beneath our feet worn smooth by the passage of millions. Soon, we enter the Forum of the Ox. Notice the scent of fresh plaster and expensive timber. Just a few years before your visit, this entire district was a charred ruin, consumed by a devastating fire. But today, thanks to Justinian I's relentless drive, it feels almost jarringly new. The shops are bustling with traders, and in the center, the famous bronze ox stands as a silent witness to the city's endurance. But Constantinople is a city that never stops reinventing itself. At the Forum Amastrianum, the splendor and strain of the empire is palpable. On one side stands the Temple of Helios, its round facade once a beacon of pagan worship. Now, however, the air around it is thick, not with blood sacrifice, but with the quiet murmur of Christian liturgy. The temple has been converted into a church, a victory of the new faith over the old gods. Opposite it, the Capitolium, once a temple to Jupiter, now echoes with the sharp debates of scholars. It has been repurposed as a prestigious center for higher learning, where the wisdom of the ancients is salvaged for a Christian future. As we approach the center, the urban density reaches a fever pitch. We pass through the Forum of Theodosius with its staggering, beautifully decorated triumphal arches that make you feel small, insignificant, yet part of something eternal. And then we emerge into the Forum of Constantine, and for a moment, you will be absolutely awestruck. This oval space is a masterpiece of Roman urbanism. Imagine the site of the Athena Promachos, the very same bronze giant that once guarded the Acropolis in Athens, now standing here, 30 feet tall, her spear glinting as she watches over the Roman crowds. Finally, we reach the Augustaion, the very soul of the city. This is not just a square, it is a world stage. The air is alive with the clatter of carts, the smell of foreign spices from the docks, and the towering presence of the Column of Justinian. This is the heartbeat of the empire, where trade, power, and faith collide. A place where you might buy rare silks from the east or catch a glimpse of the emperor himself as he moves toward the great palace. Stay with us, for the true wonders of the central city are about to be revealed. Wonders alone do not build empires. Infrastructure does. As we move away from the commercial noise of the central forums, we encounter the colossal stone skeleton of the Aqueduct of Valens. Imagine looking up at this staggering engineering marvel, finished in 368 AD, which stretches across the city to deliver fresh water from mountain springs nearly 120 kilometers away. Much like the great aqueducts of old Rome, this is a testament to technical precision, powered entirely by gravity to sustain a population of 500,000 souls. Picture this: the water flowing silently through stone channels high above your head, a constant, life-giving current that feeds the city's fountains and massive bathing complexes. At the very end of this stone lifeline, we arrive at the Great Nymphaeum. Using our AI reconstruction, we can see this monumental theater of water as it appeared in 565 AD. Notice the sound of the cascading streams and the cool mist rising from deep marble basins, a sensory refuge from the heat of the urban streets. In earlier centuries, this space was crowded with pagan carvings, but those have now been replaced by the stern, silent faces of Roman emperors and philosophers. It is a clear signal of a city in transition, where ancient beauty is repurposed to serve a new Christian identity. A short detour leads us to the Church of the Holy Apostles, a structure second in magnificence only to the Hagia Sophia itself. Imagine the scale of this cross-shaped masterpiece, originally started by Constantine the Great. As we shift our perspective, we see its 5 massive domes crowning the skyline, marking it as a place of royal burial and solemn ceremony. Finally, we stand before the Hagia Sophia, the Church of the Holy Wisdom. This is the absolute zenith of Justinian I's reign. Through our AI tools, we can look directly up at the impossible dome, 33 meters in diameter, hovering 55.6 meters above the marble floor. Now, imagine stepping inside. The light from 40 windows at the base of the dome creates a shimmering halo, making the ceiling appear as if it is suspended from heaven. The interior is draped in brand new golden plating, reflecting the flicker of thousands of oil lamps and the heavy scent of incense drifting beneath the vaulted shadows. This is where technical mastery meets absolute faith. While the great palace nearby may one day crumble into scattered ruins, this sacred space is built to outlive the very power that commissioned it. As you cross this threshold, you are witnessing an architectural legacy that will dominate the skyline for the next 1,500 years. Stay with us, for as we leave these golden heights, we shall dive into the vibrant, unruly life of the city's taverns and harbors. But history isn't just about stone and gold. It's about the pulse of a living city. Imagine the air suddenly vibrating with a sound so immense it feels like a physical force. You are standing near the Hippodrome of Constantinople, a staggering stadium capable of holding 100,000 spectators. Picture this: the racing factions, the blues and the greens, screaming in a fever of obsession while chariots thunder past at lethal speeds. Through our AI reconstructions, we can see the dust rising from the track and feel the tension of a rivalry that often erupts into open rebellion, threatening the very throne of the emperor. When the roar becomes too much, we retreat to the baths of Zeuxippus. Notice the sensory shift, the cool touch of marble, the scent of essential oils, and the heavy mist of the heated chambers. Imagine standing beneath vaulted ceilings adorned with intricate mosaics and statues of Greek heroes, while stricter Christian moral rules now dictate separate hours for men and women. This is the city's social lung. You would hear the echoes of magistrates debating trade, while, deep below the marble floors, invisible workers toil in the furnace rooms to keep the empire's waters flowing at a constant, luxurious heat. As evening shadows stretch across the Mese, we find ourselves in one of the hundreds of taverns scattered through the narrow streets. Picture the warmth of a brick hearth, the clatter of pewter dishes, and the smell of salted meats and spiced wine. "A toast to our host," you might hear a merchant shout as the night grows loud with stories and laughter. It is in these moments, amidst the steam of the baths and the echoes of the stadium, that you truly see the people of Constantinople. Brilliant, volatile, and profoundly human. As our journey draws to an end, we leave Constantinople not by land, but by the sea. Imagine standing on the deck of a merchant vessel, catching the evening breeze as we pull away from the harbors. You look back and the skyline is a silhouette of sheer ambition. The many cupolas glitter in the setting sun, but one dominates them all, the golden crown of the Hagia Sophia, a silent beacon watching over the Bosphorus. Empires rise and fall, but faith and stone often outlive the powers that built them. In 565 AD, you witnessed the zenith of the Roman world, a city that redefined what was possible for human civilization. It was a world of splendor and strain, brilliant, volatile, and profoundly alive. Now, let us look at the present. If you visit Istanbul today, you can still stand beneath that same dome that Justinian I raised nearly 15 centuries ago. Yet so much has been lost to the relentless march of time. The great palace is gone, its vast halls and throne rooms reduced to scattered ruins or buried beneath modern neighborhoods. The grand forums where the bronze Athena once stood have been reclaimed by the city's ever-changing layers. History here is not a replacement, but a series of layers pressed together, leaving traces of different centuries for those who know where to look. Sometimes I wish I could step back and experience this world as it once was, even just for a single day. Until then, these AI reconstructions are the closest we can come to reviving that dream. What city or moment in time should we reconstruct next? Your ideas and feedback shape our next journey, so please leave a comment below. I am Will, and thank you for exploring the lost wonders of the world with me. Until next time, cheers.